Because this week it's been crazy the amount of work we're still pricing for the spring, and they were like, listen, you got to clean up. You look like a...
You got to be presentable.
Right.
I gotcha. Hey everybody, welcome back. This is Blacktop Banter, and we are on episode 39. So, like I said, we're getting a mix of guests, and some are brand new people and people we don't know, and they're very interesting. And then there is guests that we might know, some of us might know, listeners might know. This guest today, similar to Tom Esso, who I tried to get on for a year. I talked to Chris when I first started the podcast, and we were like, yeah, we're going to make it happen. And today we got Chris Tammany. Chris, you want to kind of introduce yourself, for your business, where you're at, how long it's been, all that jazz.
Sure. So I'm Chris Tammany with Petra Paving. We're out of Hampstead, New Hampshire. If you can't tell by the accent, Marvin was already making fun of me for it. So I've been in the paving business since paving and seal coating. I started out seal coating and line striping in 1987. I started after I got thrown out of high school for the second time my senior year from two different schools.
Why?
I figured,
Why'd you get thrown out?
I had a problem with authority.
Oh, okay. That's fair enough. Was it a Catholic school?
So in eighth grade, I got taken out of public school and put in a parochial school.
Okay.
Because I was a disciplinary problem.
Sure.
And then, my senior year, I got in some trouble at that school, and they asked me to leave. So my father was angry, put me back in public school, and this, I don't know what it was, less than a month, maybe 3 weeks from graduation, I got expelled again. So, anyways, that'll show you what my mindset was and why,
Sure.
But anyways, got done with that. And a year later, I was married with my first son, and I came across a truck one day with this tank on it, and was looking at it and trying to figure out and talking to the guy that owned it, and turned out he had financed a guy to get into the seal coating business, and the guy didn't do what he said he was going to do, so he wound up having to repossess the truck and the tank and everything else. Well, guy had no clue what was what, and it was November, December, so he just parked it out behind his house, and I didn't know anything about it, so I made a deal with him to buy all of this, and got the thing home and found out that the tank full of sealer, it was 300 and something gallons of sealer in a 500-gallon tank had frozen over the winter, and the pump and everything else. So that was my first lesson.
Yep.
But anyways,
that's how you got started then, was with buying that first seal coat rig from that guy.
Yeah. And brought it home, tore it all apart, cleaned it out, sat inside that tank for probably 2 days with a hammer and a chisel and cleaned it out.
Yeah.
Took all the pipe and, went right through it, got it to the point where it would pump water, and decided not water.
That's right. I know how it is out there. Completely different thing. And
anyways, started calling around and found a guy about an hour and a half away that had a big seal coating company and agreed to, sell me some sealer. So up I went with my rig to fill it up. No clue what I was doing. Didn't know. Walked in and I said, introduced myself, said, yeah, I'm going to start seal coating. And they were like, oh, okay. And it started asking me questions. And I finally looked at him, and his name was Jim Davis. The company was Davis and Swanson out of Tilton, New Hampshire. And one of his sons is still very big in the industry, Job Davis. He's part of Seal Master and everything now. Yep. But anyways, just looked at him and said, Jim, I don't know. Told him what I just explained to you guys. And he just looked at me and shook his head and went, oh boy. So he gave me about a hour and a half crash course on seal coating.
Yep.
And went home. Next day, I seal coated my in-laws' driveway.
Yep.
Made an absolute mess because nobody really said anything about edging or anything like that. So I'm spraying right up against the stone walls going, yeah, well, I guess this must be acceptable. What else are you going to do? And,
Right. And, the in-laws are always great people anyways. They don't care no matter what. Yeah, right. So you really went up some notches. Go ahead and two-tone fading that brickwork that they had at their house.
Right. So, that's how it started. And
Cool.
I continued to do it off and on for the next 5 years. I would seal coat pretty much everything and anything. And, I was traveling far and wide and
Which means about 20 minutes.
well, no, back then I would travel an hour and a half.
Oh,
to
really?
do a job. I mean, that was,
I'm out there. Yeah.
but anyway, so we got through that period. And then, up back here in New England around 89, 90, the economy tanked hard.
Okay.
And I didn't really feel it as bad as the more established guys did because I was still coming up, so got through that. But through that, I had made this relationship with a guy that owned Petra Paving, and it was a small company, and it got to the point where they were really scrounging trying to find work, and one of his guys needed more hours and left them and went somewhere else. And growing up on a farm, I had tons of experience with equipment and bulldozers and everything else. And so I wound up making a deal with him. I wound up working 3, sometimes 4 days a week with him, driving truck and doing whatever. And then I would pile up my seal coat for like a Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Sure, yeah.
And I did that for 2 years with him. And then the winter so in the spring of 91, my wife and I we bought some land and we started to build a house. So pretty much over the whole course of the summer and the fall, we built the house. And then in January, we moved in. Mm-hmm. And I had gotten a job working for a local oil company delivering home heating oil in the winter. And it was a pretty good gig. I came in one night, it was 5:30. I came in for the night and the phone was ringing just as I walked through, and my wife answered it and handed it to me and said, hey, Dave's on the phone, which was a guy that owned Petra. And so I answered, I said, hey, what's up? And he's like, can you meet me tonight somewhere for coffee? And I said, yeah. I said, let me eat dinner. And so went and met with him and a few minutes of chit chat. And I said, fine. I said, Dave, what's up? What's going on? Yeah. And he said, I'm done paving. He goes, I hate this industry. I hate the people. I hate everything about it. He said, if you want to buy the business, he says, I'll consider it. He said, otherwise I'm just going to have a big yard sale and sell everything. And I said, really? And he's like, yep. And I said, okay. So we agreed on a price and left. And I went home and 9:30 at night, walked in and told my wife, I said, we got to go to the bank tomorrow and take a mortgage on the house.
She loved that. Yeah.
Right. She was just beside herself. She's like, no, we're doing all right the way we are. Let's just keep going. I was like, no, this is the next best thing. We got to keep moving up. So anyways, that was February of 1992, and
wow,
been at it ever since. It was when I first bought it. It was me and 3 guys. We had 4 guys total. We had 3 dump trucks. We had 2 6-wheelers, a 10-wheeler, and a 1-ton van. But I had gotten so consumed with the paving that I got out of the seal coating, and I stayed out of the seal coating, I think, till 2003, 2004, when the paving had finally gotten to a point where I had a paving foreman, and I could step off, and at that point, the girls, I had my wife and another girl in the office, and they were constantly they were on me. They're like, we got to think about getting back into seal coating.
Yeah, you guys have been paving all these projects for years.
Right. And that's what they
subcontractors, or handing them off to these seal coat companies, and you think, that adds up. And once you have that repertoire, I imagine, of pavement, and then all of a sudden you're just giving all the seal coat work away. Those little numbers, even though seal coat looks like little numbers, they add up to some big numbers if you put them all together. So you had probably 10 or 15 years worth of pavement down, and here these guys are seal coating, and it could have been yours. I imagine those girls were thinking, bing, we need to get that money. Yeah.
Exactly. And that's what happened. And, shortly after that, my oldest son came in the business. He had left, and he was actually going to go to school to be a pastor, and he went to school for that for a year and a half, 2 years, and then decided that maybe it wasn't for him. And so he came out, and he wound up becoming the seal coating foreman. And so that end of the business really started to take off, because right out of the gate, every spring, we had 250 driveways that we paved the year before. That was, it was a no-brainer. They weren't even asking price. They would just come do it.
Yeah.
And then it's like anything else, when you go into any area and you're there working, and it raises curiosity, and people are calling. So it just snowballed on its own.
Do you think, Chris, that they called you back out of just necessity, that they needed a seal coater, so they called Chris? Or do you think because you had developed a good relationship through paving their material?
That's exactly what it was.
Wanted you that, because some people, sometimes it doesn't matter. Sometimes they just hire whoever, and then some people prefer, if they have a great experience with a company like Petra, they're like, well, we're not even going to ask the price. We just want you to go ahead and take care of it. You guys do such a good job taking care of us to begin with. Was that the case?
Yeah, that's exactly what it was, Marvin. And it was just, the paving part was a good experience. So it was, they didn't even question. So, right. You're not gouging the customer, but at that point, you're not fighting for the work. And imagine knowing you had $200,000 worth of seal coating work right out of the gate that you didn't have to go look at, nothing. You just you sent them a price, they sign it, they email it back, and it's done on the books.
And you guys already had those clients, so the square footage, the asphalt,
everything,
the everything of it, how long it's been. So it worked out really good for. It's
we have customers now that where the driveways are 12 years old, and we just seal coated them for the fourth time, because we tell them every 3 years. Mm-hmm. And
I imagine by now you're tearing out driveways that you'd put in to begin with, or tearing out parking lots you put in, right?
Just in the last couple of years, there's been those are just starting to come around.
That makes you feel young, doesn't it?
Yeah. Well,
I was thinking when you said you started in 87.
Yeah,
I was 2 years old.
Oh, okay.
So if that gives you some kind of on time, but gosh, what a statement to Petra to have put that driveway in way back then, and we're pushing 30 years now of this driveway, and it being properly maintained and taken care of. And we're both in similar climates, so you would think that by now, with pavement and pavement maintenance being a business itself, people realize that actually maintaining your driveway is extending the life of it a good 10 years, if not more. And that has to be what you see, I would imagine, over there with proper maintenance versus somebody who doesn't maintain it. Because here you've got driveways that you installed and have maintained, and here we are 30 years deep into the business, and now you're starting to take those pavements out and put new pavements down that that maybe your kids one day will take out and put back in again or something.
Oh yeah, it's already going that way. I mean, my oldest son he's the paving foreman now, and and my youngest son works on the paver crew with him, and it's fun in the morning sometimes because I tell the dirt crew, we have a dirt crew as well, and they go around and prep and prepare stuff in front of the paving crew, and I'll tell them, hey, I did this one back in '92, and they laugh, and they're like, and one of the kids on the crew he's about your age, and that's what he always says. He goes, I don't even think I was in first grade yet. And I said, shut up, you're making me feel old.
Yeah, it's funny. Sometimes we'll post to the podcast Instagram memes, and there's one that I just had a dad pointing, and it said, I paved that back in.
Right.
And the kid's eyes was rolling back in his head like, oh, my God, here we go again. And my little guy, he says that all the time. And I'll forget that I told him already, and we'll go buy one. I said, hey, you see that? Yeah, I know. You did it. And it's like, oh, well, okay, then fine. It is what it is. But I guess that's industry wide that happens. So
yeah,
it's kind of
the funny part is now that both my boys are old enough, they've got their own sons. So it's third generation is getting the elbow. Hey, I paved that,
So when you got to where you expanded back into the seal coating industry, and then you had your paving foreman and stuff as well, did you see growth in those areas still when you stepped back? Is kind of what I was wondering.
Absolutely. Because up until that point, what was going on, Marvin, was my oldest son and I mean, we'd work all day, come back in 4:30, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, whatever it was. And we'd each try and go out every night and do 3 estimates, 4 estimates. And I mean, there were nights where I wasn't even coming home till 9 o'clock,
Yep.
Trying to keep up with estimating and stuff. So he basically just one day was like, listen, let me run the paver. You get off the paver and go run the business.
Yeah.
And he's been coming to the the seminars and the show with me, and it's one of those things, sitting there every year, you hear it. But I'm kind of an old farm boy, I guess. I got diesel fuel running through my veins. Nothing makes me happier like this time, to go out and like hook the excavator up to a dump truck sometimes, and I just go out by myself for the day and dig stumps out and get a site ready or something like that. That is the happiest thing in my life now, is just knowing the boys are taking care of everything. The girls got everything in the office.
Yep.
3 crews are out running, and I'm over here all by myself, moving dirt, playing, having fun.
Yeah, I hear that pretty often. I'm kind of in the stage now where my crew lead is taking over for Wiscoat, the seal coating aspect. We subcontract our paving yet. And we're in that stage where last year I was just running rampant, trying to train those guys, and then me trying to estimate as well. I would be gone, same thing, 8 or 9 o'clock. If the sun was up, more than likely I was still out.
Correct.
And then they took over, and when they did, it allowed us to have a better season last year than I really had thought we were going to. I was just freed up more time-wise to be able to do these estimates, put more thought and more effort into the estimates and securing the bids. And then when they were gone doing something, I would hook onto the striping unit by myself and go stripe after them or something like that. But how you were talking about, you just like to hook on the excavator and go. One of the guys we both know, Stephen Brainy, he posts all the time that on Sunday he'll hook up onto the striping rig and take it out, and he's like, literally, this is my pleasure, like just out here.
It's therapy.
Yeah, that's what he said. That's pretty much
therapy.
That's how he explained it. It's kind of going full circle, I would imagine, if I could ask you how you feel about it, because you start out doing the work and doing all this, then you go through this big transition, and here you've made it to where you can just go back out and do the work what you kind of loved doing at the beginning.
Correct. And going to the show all these years, you learn about it and everything else. And when you're younger, sometimes it's hard to put it in practice. You know what I mean? But once you do, now it's to a point where I understand my role, and it works good. And, I'm kind of a numbers guy. I always have to see, the girls know they have to track everything, because I want to, I want to know June of 2020, how it compared to June of 2019. And, so they've always, but the biggest thing we noticed was like when we were doing estimates at nights and weekends and stuff, our win rate was in the 25 to 28% range was a good norm, which everybody told me was acceptable. But it used to drive me crazy because I'm thinking, and they were like, if you need more, you got to get the numbers up. And it's like, I got to figure out how to not so much find more customers, just land the work.
More efficient. Yeah.
And lo and behold, the byproduct of my son forcing me off the paver and back out in the truck, and I'm up to about a 42% closure rate now on work that I look at, because I get there, I'm not under the gun as much as I used to be. I don't smell like an old goat because I've been standing on a paver for 10 hours in 90-degree heat. I've got time to, basically explain to them why their request might not be correct and this would be more correct, and so on and so forth. So my win rate went through the roof.
Isn't that something, how that works?
Yeah.
And you look, I don't know if you just seem more presentable or more confident or more enthusiastic about doing it.
Yeah.
If you've worked all day, like you said, you're on a paver all day, slaved away, you just want to get the estimates done so you can get back home.
Oh, I was literally just showing up going, what do you want? And they, well, we're thinking this. And I'd be like, no, that's stupid. You should do it this way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're very short, curt. You don't have any, you don't want to listen to anything. You know what I mean? It's just all you're thinking is you're standing in the way of me and my dinner.
Yeah. That's, you get to a point to where you're thinking, I'm already got enough work. We're busy. I don't want you to say I never came out.
Right.
So then you're just like, here's what it is. This is what it would be. And there's no like, does that work? Here's some other options. There's none of that. So it's funny, now I realized that this year, especially when I went out, and I was like, I never really gave anybody options. And so it was always with me, it was like, this is what it is. Well, if somebody else shows up and there's 3 tiers of options or a longer process where they don't have to do everything all at once, you win more. And this year it felt like we won a crazy percentage. I'm excited. I haven't got all my work done, my paperwork done yet, but I want to see what we were up and how we did. And a lot of that's attributed to the expo, to where we go and everything like that. Do you want to talk a little bit about what you present and things at the expo?
So I live and breathe by stuff that I've learned there. Brad Humphrey, Jeff Stokes, Guy Gruenberg, all those guys. I mean, I have built my company around them and what they've taught me over the years. I mean, a quick history lesson on that. I rolled into my very first show in 1999, and that I had made the split in the company that year to separate from one crew that prepped and paved and did everything to go to 2 crews. I was going to have a dirt crew and a pave crew, and didn't really know much about overhead and this and that, and just figured, well, I'm doing more work, so I got to be making more money.
Yep.
And it was the typical, whatever was left at the end of the year, I thought, okay, I had a good year or I had a bad year. I look back on it now and it seems very foolish, but I still run across young guys getting in the game that have the same mentality. I'm like, come have coffee with me for an hour. Let me school you up. But anyways, we rolled in, and my wife and I remember we sat in Brad and Jeff, when they used to teach together, we were sitting there watching a class, and I remember sitting there thinking, this is impossible. Who can do this? I don't have time to do this. I can't, I went down there, Marvin, looking for the answer.
Sure.
The secret to success. And, I'm looking at all these guys and I'm like, they all know it. I just got to find one of these SOBs that'll, let the cat out of the bag and tell me what the secret is.
Yeah.
I thought it was just that
mentality, that kind of atmosphere.
Yeah. So after the class was over, I kind of hung around and I wound up talking with Brad and Jeff, and kind of told them where I was at. I said, listen, I said, I'm here looking for the secret to success.
Sure.
I said, if I can't find it, I have to go home and file bankruptcy
Yep.
and call it quits. I said, I've gotten myself in some trouble this year. I don't know if I can dig out from underneath it, but so Brad took pity on me, and he sat down with my wife and I, and he spent quite a bit of time with us, and told him where we were at and everything else. And he said, he goes, I think you can dig out from underneath it. He goes, but you gotta learn all, so this, that, and everything else. So then that was the first year I met Mike Nauer and his wife, Judy, and
Great guy.
yeah, I mean, it was just from that point on, it's been my Mecca, so, but anyway, so what I learned there was I learned about budgeting, how to actually create a budget, which again, now at 53 years old, it seems so simple, but it wasn't then, you know what I mean? I didn't even have a high school diploma.
It's like a foreign language.
All I knew how to do was get out of bed at 5 a.m. and work till 9 o'clock at night. I was always brought up with, if you work hard, it's enough.
Yeah.
And I was at a position in my life where hard work wasn't doing it.
Yep.
And so learned about budgeting, learned about job costing, and then, and you think everybody talks about budgeting and job costing, but nobody ever really talks about how to blend that all together and what you're supposed to do with it once you compile all that information.
Right.
So my operations manager, Linda, she's been teaching QuickBook classes at the show now for 5-6 years. And Vinny Ngongoro from Connecticut, Rocky's Asphalt, he and I did a couple driveway classes, and they were okay, but it was like, all right, we didn't hit it out of the park, and it was my first time teaching. And I've done the Sealcoating roundtable for years with Nick Howell.
Yep.
And I started out on the pavers round table with Don Rooney, and then Vinny came in and helped Don with the paving, and I wound up doing the Sealcoaters round table. And then last year, Linda and I proposed, how about an office round table? And we did that last year, last year was the second year. And we've been doing an office round table, which was fantastic. I think that's I think for most contractors, whether it's seal coating or you're starting out paving like Petra did when it was small or whatever, that's the biggest foreign language thing to guys like myself or guys, whatever. Listen, I understand if they call me, I go there. I understand I can do the basic math to give them the estimate. I then understand I can go get the material, do the work, and they're going to hand me a check. Right.
I get that. I can do that, and I could do it all day. If I eat a good dinner and I stay hydrated, I can do it all day. But what do I do once I get that check? And what do I do once I have these invoices? And what do I do once I got to file taxes? And then how much does all that cost me? Because I didn't think about that when I gave them the estimate per square foot or per square yard of what it was going to be. So I think that's the biggest hurdle to get contractors that were your size, that are my size, to get over that next hump to where they can really get some growth and stability. And those roundtables like you present and the classes there at MPE, those are things that I think people don't realize how valuable they are to some people, because the majority of people that go might know it already. Okay. Right. But they forget that when they didn't know it, or it, was lucky enough to have it just taught to them, or they were just around it, to guys like myself or guys that are other contractors that have no clue, that's that nugget that you were talking about. That's the thing that makes the difference in your business. And it's always evolving. You and I were talking about pavement software before we got live here. And we're at that point to where I really need to make a good choice, because it's making us very inefficient for me to keep my old ways. And I know that, and I know I see the other companies. Luckily, your guys' crew, Chris, where it's Vinny and Mike and yourself, that generation. There's another generation, my generation, that's below us. We all are those same guys. There's friends like I have that are Daniel Wright or Dustin Natinka, some of these guys, to where we're wondering, how do we get up there? We're fortunate enough that we're not shooting in the blind and trying to figure it out and do whatever. You guys have laid a great groundwork for all of us.
Yeah.
But, it makes it a little more confident because I can call you up, or I can call Tom Esso, or I can call Todd Eichholtz down at A&A and just be like, hey, how do I do this? What do you guys use? How do I tackle this? And before, like you were saying, you were just shooting in the dark, going down there hoping. And now here you are. You guys got that round table. I sat in on Nick's seal coating roundtable last year, and I was really hoping to move to your guys' roundtable this year. And stuff, but
so that my oldest son Brian he's the one doing the roundtable with Nick now for seal coating.
Yep.
So, but no, I mean, getting back to what I learned, I mean, for you young guys, even old guys, I'm amazed at how many older guys at the show that still don't do it. But I mean, we run by what we call a DPE, which is a direct payroll expense. And we have our overhead. I mean, some of my excavation buddies around here laugh because they're like, man, you charge the freaking customers for every paper clip. And I'm like, you're damn right I do. If I got to go to Staples and buy paper clips, somebody's paying for it, not me.
That's right.
So like right now, we're compiling everything to get everything done and ready. So by, February, we know exactly what our cost is going to be for the 2021 season to be in business.
Yep.
And, we have obviously like it's all about historical data. You run with the last 3 years maintenance costs, and you try to, some of that stuff is averaged out. So some years you win, some years you lose.
But you're a lot closer than shooting in the dark.
There you go. Right. So I'm real big about that. And even every day at orientation, we even, present to the guys, here's what you cost the company an hour.
Yeah.
So
make it worth it.
And here's the amazing thing is, so when sometimes a hot day or whatever, you stop by, I'll bring the dirt crew iced coffees or something, and we'll sit there and I'll just take 10 or 15 minutes just to try to remind them that,
we're human.
Yeah, exactly.
We're all in this together.
And, they'll tease me and they're like, oh, yep, 15 minutes you kept us. That just cost you X amount of dollars. But and you know what? But it's like, it blows your mind because once they know, they want to know. They want to know that information. And
if you have the right team and the right guys, I think they want to bring that value.
Correct.
Whatever you taught them. And then if they want more money, they're going to realize that they're going to have to bring even more value.
Right.
I think that's a great idea and a great.
So a couple of years ago, that's when I'm very passionate about it. And I talked to Linda and I said, hey, how about you and I teach a class about budgeting and, try to give them an idea of what to do with the budget and how it actually integrates into their company. And we did it in 2020, and we were supposed to do it again this year, but obviously it didn't happen. But and it was crazy because we came home from the show and we spent probably a month with the phone just blowing up, people calling with questions. And it's weird in a way because you're thinking, wow, because when you go into that class, not being a professional teacher or being Brad or Jeff or Guy, you think, I don't know how many people are going to be sitting in the audience going, duh, I already know this. But, halfway through it, you're looking around and you see everybody writing and everything else. And you're like, okay, well, I guess there is some value to what I'm going to teach them. And so it kind of validates what you're doing, but it's good.
Don't you think, and I don't know, obviously, because I wasn't around. I've been at it 5 years here with everybody at the expo and everything. And thankfully, Alan gave me a shot to kind of, get my neck in there with everybody. But I noticed locally, you know, if you're even in the state or wherever, there's this, you know, between contractors. And then when you get to MPE, it's not. It's this. Everyone's open book. Hey, man, we want
It's a brotherhood.
we want to see you succeed. If you need anything, call me. Whatever. So I think, you know, the mentality of people is changing within this industry because we've created a community. You guys made the great step of making this community, making it work, having something for everyone to go there. My generation with the social media has made this community, and we all connect that way. That's how you and I connect on LinkedIn, you know, when we do connect and things like that. And it's just I think there's already less of a barrier to where people feel comfortable. And if they sit in your class, they feel like they might already know you a little bit. They do know the people around them a little bit, and no one's scared to ask questions or do whatever. And you realize that, hey, this is all actually just to help us. Like if you make the trip to MPE, if you spend the money to go and stay and do whatever, everyone pretty much knows you're serious about your business.
Right.
What you're
Absolutely.
doing. So I think that's kind of what you noticed, correct?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, I would say 95% of the people at MPE are there to learn, to find, like you were saying, find that golden nugget, you know. And honestly, even, I mean, for some of us guys that have been going 20 plus years, you know, I'm finding myself taking classes that I took years ago. I take them as a refresher. And honestly, a lot of times it's just get there, meet up with people, and just it's like you almost take a deep breath. You can relax, you know, and just go have dinner, go have fun. You know, you walk the floor, you joke, you laugh, you know, you have fun. You know, you tell each other stupid war stories about.
So let's say your comrades. You know,
right? It's a brotherhood. It really is, and I mean, there's a half a dozen guys from the show that I call monthly.
Yep.
Hey, I'm up against this, you know, hey, you know, like I had one a while ago. We were supposed to seal coat a car wash, and I called a buddy of mine that does a lot of seal coat and was talking to him about it. And he was like, don't do it, bail. He's like, there's so much silicone and this and that. He goes, you'll never get the seal coat to stick to that.
Oh, really? I never had heard that before.
And, you know, he's like, so he raised a lot of concerns, and I wound up calling my rep at NYRA, and, you know, he agreed. He said, you know, if you're going to do it, you got to do this, you know, get it pressure washed and, you know, this type of primer, blah, 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 blah. And so I got back to the owner of the car wash, explained to him what was going on, and told him what the price was and everything. And he goes, I don't know. I said, yeah. I said, it's getting to the point where it's almost not even worth it, Brian. I said, you know, I said, but the last thing I want to do, I said, is come in here and just blow 2 coats of sealer on this with my fingers crossed, hoping it's going to stick. And in 6 months, I look like an idiot in front of half the town.
Yep.
You know, I said, so so we went in and, you know, we took the hot air taffas and we burned the cracks out and stuff. And we got it crack sealed for them and reline striped and, you know, did what we could.
It'll ride its way out until the finish.
Yeah, exactly. So, but, you know, the show, there's so many people there that are passionate. And, you know, every year you got to be careful, because I got hooked into one guy one year. He was a new guy floating around, and next thing you know, he's hitting me up, and I wound up kind of getting involved with him a little bit, doing some consultation work and everything. And he just turned out to be an absolute dub.
Sure.
And he was running around playing off of people, and you know, and I notice it seems like every year there's somebody walking around the show with an angle, you know, and you gotta, so unfortunately not 100% everybody there is there because they're passionate about the industry. Some of them are just there looking for the next client. And that's the one thing I enjoy about the guys that teach and everything else. I mean, you know, granted, Guy and Jeff and Brad, you know, they get paid well to come do it, and they should, because they're fantastic at what they do, but they're also passionate about it. I mean, if you know Brad and Jeff's history, I mean, they were seal coaters just like the rest of us, you know what I mean? They did it all. So
yeah, I think you find that at MPE that you know, you can really, it gives you a chance to gauge people too, because you are talking to them and doing whatever. And what's fun to me is to see your guys' generation and to see the similarities. I don't know if anybody even looks at it besides myself, but I see all your guys' similarities, and then I see my crew similarities, who I'm walking the floor with. I just was talking with Jason Vaughn. We walk the floor together every year, and
Yep.
I'm not going to get to do that with him this year. And it's like, it almost chokes me up thinking,
Right.
I got to break this tradition here. And we've only been doing it for a few years, but I look forward to doing it for years and years and years and years.
Well,
But
I'll tell you, Marvin, how bad it bothered a bunch of us that we're not getting together at NPE this year. We actually rented a house down on the Keys in Florida, and we're going down there for 10 days the end of the month, and we're all meeting and just gonna have a big fishing.
good.
And it was just like we were like, we gotta see, we see each other every winter. We've got to do something. So,
Well, my our generation, the social media community and stuff, where there's a good 20 of us, or 30 maybe more, that are really talk to each other pretty regular. And we did the same thing. We knew of who was going to be having time for us in a certain spot, and we all were like, hey, let's go ahead and make this work if we can do it. So, we kind of planned the same thing too.
that's awesome.
I take it as, I love MPE. It gets me going, it gets me fired up. I love the atmosphere. I feel like I'm home when I'm there.
Right.
And everyone is all geared up. We're all pushing each other to go. I really look at it as, and part of the reason I do the podcast and I started doing the videos, I was the guy that everyone looked at the beginning like, what the heck is this kid doing? And why is he doing this?
I remember the first time I saw you, you were just walking around with your
Camera?
your camera. And I remember thinking,
What
who is this weirdo and what is he doing?
Yeah. Well, I got it. I got there and I wanted to document my journey at the beginning. And then when I started to meet people, and really, I cannot give Alan enough praise, because
great guy.
As weird as I was with all that stuff, he never said no, or like, no, you can't do this. And he granted me access to do whatever. He trusted me a lot. And I remember telling him early on that I won't let him down. And I still think about that to this day, even though he's, kind of going to be enjoying retirement and everything. I still think about that, because now it's passed on to where, your generation, those guys trust me too. I want to make sure that this generation that I have does what you guys did and does what your crew did. And I think
it is funny, the difference, because like my two sons, my oldest son is 35, 36, and my youngest son's 27. So I know he's right in your age bracket somewhere.
Yep.
And I was just talking about this the other day to my youngest son, and he's like, "Oh yeah, no, I'm on." He's like, "I'm on a Facebook. I forget the name, some seal coating thing you guys are on together." And he's like, "Yeah, I know Marvin." And I'm like, "Oh, all right."
I was in Nashville. I went down and seen Jeff at Stencil Plus, and I went down to Georgia and then stopped by South Carolina. But I stopped in Nashville. If you go where we all usually are, if you go west, Belle Meade is out there, and it's a beautiful winery. And I wanted to get a case of wine. One of my friends here, Adam, and I really enjoy the wine. I stopped out there. I was in the Wisco truck, pulled up, stopped, shut the door, and somebody yelled out, "Marvin, hey!" And I'm like, "Hey, I don't even know who they were or where it was from." He's like, "We love your stuff." I'm like, "Oh, all right." So, I just went in and got the wine or whatever. But it's funny to me that we all love this industry so much, and that I feel like I was in the right place, the right time, with the right ambition, I guess, and the right intention to shine a positive light on our industry. I hate the negative view that the outside of our industry, us that know each other have. And I really wanted to bring that to the forefront. So early on, I did the videos, walked around the floor. When you see me the first time, I wanted to show people this is a legit industry with a legit conference. And this is where we get our materials. It's legit. This is actually has a purpose, and we enjoy it. And we want to make sure we bring that customer satisfaction through with all this stuff. Then it switched, and I started to get to know guys like yourself and get to know young guys too that were struggling. I didn't realize I was the only one. I realized I wasn't the only one, but I wanted to document all this stuff. I want to document Petra. I want to document Esso, Alan, everybody. And that's how all this got started. And it's fun. This is the pleasure of my life, is doing this for all of us while we're doing it. I enjoy it so much, getting to know
Yeah.
you and your family. And here we are. We got multi-generations gapped here.
Right.
We're in a great spot in our industry because you guys are still in the game to be able to teach us everything. And yet us young guys are, taking advantage of technology and everything else.
Yep.
Make those connections. It's really,
Yeah. I think the younger generation teaches us a lot too. You guys, I mean, like my boys and even one of the girls in my office, she's 30 and she's like a tech guru. And,
Yeah.
I think I drive her nuts sometimes because I'll walk up with my whole, I'll pull up out and grab my computer out of the pickup because I generate all my estimates right in the pickup with a printer and everything. And every once in a while I hit the wrong button. I don't know what to do.
Down the hole. Yeah.
I come flying
start
out,
making
I
it better,
jump out, I run into the door with the computer, I throw it on her desk. I don't know what I did, but fix it. I got to be at my next appointment.
So like a little grass fire, you go to kick it out and here you kicked embers over here. And then all of a sudden you're like, trying to get it taken care of and everything else.
Yeah.
Myself and Cameron Hogate were supposed to speak on Saturday at MPE about Facebook ads and how we for marketing. And it's a great thing to see that the torch, not only, the torches are getting handed in this industry somewhat. And yet you see Alan hand it to Russ and Russ be aware enough to know that there's great value in what I have to say, what some of these younger people have to say. But at the same time, I can guarantee you, I'm not going to miss guys' class. I don't want to miss that because we're getting the best of both worlds. We don't know everything. MPE makes you incredibly humble if you're a small contractor and a guy learning. Because
a great way to put it. It'll certainly bring you down to reality.
Yes.
But also, and if you're really passionate about it, it's going to help you understand your weak points, what you need to do to make them better.
Yeah, and makes you aware of them too before you go. So you're looking at what I need to get strong about when you're going to MPE.
Right. And the thing, we've touched on it multiple times already and the stuff that you can't even put a price on is the list of names you come away with.
Oh, it's
come July, you're in the middle of something and you're like, oh man, I talked to this guy and I'm going to call him. Yep. And you call him up and they talk to you like you just left the show yesterday. Yep. Hey man, what's going on? What can I, I'll help you,
Yeah.
Because you can't ask it. I don't know how it is in Wisconsin, but in New Hampshire, you're not going to go ask your competition. You don't want them to even smell a little bit of blood in the water because they're going to shred you.
I guarantee it. It's funny because because of MPE, you can call somebody like you said, and that anxiety that you have about this little issue goes away. Because most of the time, if you call them, they're like, "Man, this ain't anything." It's that fear of the unknown making it even worse in your brain than it really is.
Right.
If you have these resources, like you said, the list of people we know and network with is invaluable. It's just I can't put a price on it. I can't explain how valuable that's been to my business itself, and to me as a person, to feel like you have a place, a purpose, that what you're doing isn't just making blacktop black or blacktop. You're putting in something bigger than yourself. It's unbelievable. What do you envision for Petra, Chris? Because you got your boys, heading stuff up. I noticed you're probably pushing 39 now. You're thinking about retiring a little bit.
I'm 53.
You still got a good amount of time. What kind of direction do you?
So our next big move, and we're just in the last year or so trying to work towards it. I used to hear about this 10 years ago at the show, and I just was like, what? And guys would say, oh yeah, it cost me $400 to dump a load of broken asphalt and this and that. And I remember thinking, that's insane. Well, lo and behold, here we are 10 years later, and that mindset is creeping in around here. So, and we generate 25 to 30,000 yards of, dirt a year that come out from underneath driveways and everything. And I don't know how many loads of broken
blacktop.
Yeah, but it's a lot. And we're not paying yet and fortunately, the company that we use, their pit, their gravel pit, quarry, whatever everybody calls them,
Yep.
they're not charging yet.
Oh, okay.
But everybody around us is,
Mhm.
and it's only a matter of time before this ball drops. So our next big thing is two things. One is to acquire a big enough piece of land, which right now we think we may have a 39-acre parcel ready.
Mhm.
So we're gonna make a new facility over there, get set up, have a yard where we can start bringing in our material and sorting it and recycling it,
If you
and
want to, yep.
crushing up the asphalt for base. And
Yeah, that's what we did over here. We dump some of the stuff we take out, and I work with a contractor here, and they brought a crusher in. They bring one in every spring, I think.
Perfect.
And just crush it, and I love the material. I love the recycled asphalt. The crushed asphalt. It just turns out really good. Around here, there's a lot of farms, and they don't want a blacktop. It doesn't pay them any. It doesn't make any sense for them to put pavement in when they're just going to crush it under these heavy tractors and combines and everything else. But they also don't want to deal with gravel all the time and having to do it all the time, the maintenance of it. They prefer the crushed asphalt. You roll it in, they pack it in as they drive on it, and they just prefer it more. Not only that, it creates, like you were saying, a great base. I think the potential for wrap is just through the roof. And it's funny to see it kind of caught up, because I was just looking at a picture the other day of on Instagram, a company on there, and they had their recycling convoy in 1989 chewing up asphalt and throwing away. And in my brain, I'm like, oh my God, that was 30 years ago. And I only feel like it was only 10 years ago. And there's some of these guys have been doing it for that long. Some of these.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, we've always been out in the rural country area. So, I mean, 20 years ago, it was just landfill, you just big hole, people would just dump it over a bank, keep pushing it over. Well, now, a lot of areas it's no longer acceptable or considered environmentally friendly or what have you. And so, but
good. I like that idea. I think
it's that. And the other thing that we've been getting into real big is crack sealing for municipalities. So the last year or so, we started a crack sealing division, and not only doing our own work, but we've been educating some of the municipalities around here, and it's really taken off. So we're gonna actively go after that more now too.
It just makes more sense for municipalities to hire it out.
Yeah. And I mean, it's one of those things that, this comes back to a numbers game and everything else. It's like the overhead's already there. We own all the equipment. So it's like I'm paying, the overhead's paying for this stuff. So instead of making it work 2 days a week, let's make it work 5 or 6 days a week. And,
put somebody on the gun and let them do their thing.
We're real big into that, because I got out of the snow removal work back in 03, 04. Best
thing you ever did.
Yeah. And my accountant told me that one time when I sold all the snow equipment. He said, that's the most money you'll ever make.
That's the best thing I ever heard somebody say.
So, and it's to the point now where, I mean, you need 2 months in the garage just to get everything ready to go again, and I mean, we're to the point where, if something's 30% worn out, it's 30% away from being spent, that's it. Take it out, replace it, because if 30% won't get us till December of next year, in my mind, it's junk. Get rid of it, because I don't want that machine
breaking down
August or September laid up for 2 days replacing something, because that time's too valuable.
Yeah, we had one downtime. We were just talking with it. I just met with my crew lead before we come on the podcast, and we had one downtime where a hose broke on a seal right, and it was a hose that we replaced with a different piece of hose. And we were down maybe an hour. And during that time, I hated it. I hated that hour of being inefficient. We were there in the middle of
project. And that hour felt like probably 2 days.
Yep, eternity. And it has nothing to do with how much money we lost or the part or anything. It's more of, I want us to be a fluid machine, and I want us to make sure we have no downtime. everything came to a halt until the little piece of hose got fixed, and it was just
right.
like,
So,
more time.
and so to wrap up everything that we've been talking about, like this breakdown and everything else, and adding this and doing that, it comes down to simply, like I wrote an article years ago. Alan asked me to write an article about a lot of what we've been talking about. And the way I ended it, I said, the best thing and the scariest thing I ever did in my business was learn my numbers.
Yeah.
Because it's the best thing, because you are not going to be profitable or successful, for that matter, until you know your numbers.
You know your numbers, sure.
The scary thing is
Realize.
now you know
Yeah.
what the nut is every day that you got to catch. And it can be overwhelming sometimes. And I mean, I listened to Tom's Uso's podcast with you, and all I could think of the whole time he's talking about what he's doing and this and that, and I'm going, good Lord, what is your nut every day? I'd probably have a heart attack, you know?
Yeah, there's some brothers in that one, so there's a mouth to feed. But
but
that wool coming from your eyes is a scary thing when you you think you're doing good, and you get to see those numbers, and you're like, oh my God, what am I doing?
Right. And it's so important. I mean, you just, if you don't know those numbers, it's like putting a blindfold on and throwing darts at a board. You're going to get lucky once in a while and hit right. And sometimes for guys that don't do it, that's the worst thing that can happen to them, because it almost validates what they're doing wrong in their mind. And they think, oh, what do you mean? I don't have to do that. Look I made this money this year. Well, okay. Yeah. But next year you might not, you probably won't. And the year before that, you probably didn't.
Yeah.
But as humans, it doesn't take much for us to validate our own bad mistakes, so, so for your generation and the younger guys, that haven't had the opportunity to really apply it and stuff, I mean, I think you're on the right road, but, you got to look around.
I'm just trying to keep people from blowing up your phone so much, Chris. I figure if they can go to a podcast and click it,
right.
A lot better.
But, you just got to, like the last 3-4 years, we've been so busy. Our dirt crew hasn't been able to keep up. So we've been took on a sub, and he's a younger guy. He actually went to school with one of my sons, and he's got his own little excavation company. He's got 4 guys working for him, and I've been mentoring him for a couple of years now, and he's like all excited about it. But some days he calls me up and he's like, you're an idiot. He's like, this is the worst thing you could ever done for me. I'm sitting here today and it's pouring rain and I can't get nothing done, but I know how much money I'm losing today because you taught me. And, he's like, this is horrible. I liked it when I was just dumb and ignorant.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, nah, listen, you'll get it. You know what I mean? Because once you know your numbers, the rest is all just
cakewalk.
Yeah,
it's just routine. Once you know your numbers and you know what you got to do, it's similar to it's like a job, a big job. You go there, you know what you need to do in order to execute and finish the job. That's the same thing with your numbers. Once you know them, you know what you need to do in order to make those numbers how you want them. It's just going out and doing it. Granted, hopefully a pandemic doesn't happen or a monsoon season, but similar, where you're spending your money and where you're bleeding. So
I mean, we've gotten it down to the point now with our crews, when they go out in the morning, they have everything with them. They know how many yards of gravel, how many tons of asphalt, how many gallons of sealer, how many pounds of crack fill. They even have a time. They even know how many hours we figured that job to be there. And they show up and they look at it and they go, okay, we got 4 hours to get this job done and be on the next job. I mean, that's how detailed, and it's all historical data, I mean, and there's sometimes where they'll tell me and they're like, we can't get that job done that fast. And I'm like, you absolutely can. I said, and if you don't believe me, I'll show you the last 4 jobs just like it that you did, and you actually beat that time. So stop whining and go do it.
I think that's how you should end the podcast, is just say, stop whining and go do it. And that goes to everybody out there.
Like Bill Belichick says, do your job.
That's right. Do your job. Chris, thanks so much for joining us today. I really appreciate it. And I know we wanted to make this happen for a while. And I knew when you said you were from New Hampshire that I was with good people, because I like everybody from New Hampshire. I know I find you on LinkedIn. If you type in Chris Tammany, you can find him on LinkedIn. I believe Petra is on Instagram too. Am I right or am I wrong about that?
No, we've got a Facebook page.
All right, so find Petra on Facebook, find Chris on LinkedIn.
Yep, and
Cool.
that's pretty much it. I'm a bit of a dinosaur when it comes to a lot of that stuff.
But
And
now you're living on forever on a podcast now, man.
right, the boys, they'll probably at some point they'll be into all of that. But
Good. I can't wait. I can't wait.
right now, I keep them busy enough so they don't have time.
That's good. That's good.
But,
And maybe down the road here, I'll get to know them a little bit, and 10 years, hopefully we're still doing a podcast, or maybe something different by then. But
yeah, right.
we'll have them on and say, hey,
Yeah.
Chris, thanks so much again for being on the podcast today. Like he said, guys, you can check out Petra Paving on Facebook if you kind of want to go see what they got going, or on LinkedIn, you can find Chris as well. Chris, thanks so much, sir. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Marvin. Have a good winter.
No worries. All right. For Chris and myself, we want you to seal it, pave it, stripe it, and kill it. Peace.